We have it. The 2025 Bills schedule is right here. Welcome into our schedule release instant reaction show brought to you by Ticketmaster, the official ticket marketplace of the Buffalo Bills and the NFL. He's Bills insider Chris Brown. I'm your host, Maddy Glab. The Bills will face 6 teams who made it to the playoffs last season. A lot of primetime games to start the season. Chris, when you saw the schedule, what was your first reaction?
Favorable and fair. Like, yes, we know there are some high caliber opponents on the schedule due to the fact that Buffalo's playing a first place schedule, but I think it is set up quite well just in terms of how it's laid out for the Bills here in 2025.
All right, let's get into how it's all laid out. The Bills kick off the season at home on a huge stage, Sunday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens. It's the team they knocked out of the playoffs in the divisional round last year. 2 of the most recent MVP quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. What is the NFL telling us by matching up these 2 teams to start the season?
Yeah, I think we all expected prime time for this game, but this is a heavyweight matchup right out of the chute, and I think it'll be a major litmus test early for Buffalo's revamped defense. We all remember how the Week 4 game on Sunday Night Football went against the Ravens in Baltimore. Not a good showing. Now we'll see if Buffalo's defensive line really is a more formidable front than it has been in recent years. Derrick Henry is a huge test in Week 1 for that new defensive line.
Yeah, tied for the lead in the NFL with 16 touchdowns last season. Alongside our guy, James Cook, it'll be fun to see those 2 on the field. And as we talk about Week 1, a primetime game against the Ravens, there's several primetime games in the beginning of the season for Buffalo. The Bills are set to have at least 5 primetime games this season. 4 of those 5 will come within the first 6 weeks of the year. So let's break it all down. The Bills will be back in the spotlight on Week 3 and Week 5 to take on 2 teams in the division. Buffalo will face Miami early in the season, Week 3 on Thursday Night Football, and then they will face New England Week 5 on Sunday Night Football. Now, when you look at this Miami game, this is a team who missed the playoffs last season and have some big questions on their roster in terms of their trenches and their secondary. And then if you flip to New England, it's a team with a new head coach and Mike Vrabel with a second-year quarterback in Drake May, who had a promising rookie season. Which one of these games do you have circled and why?
Yeah, I think the New England game is going to be a little bit tougher than people might estimate because, they've been a non-playoff team for the last few years, ever since the Belichick and Brady era came to a close. But they have a young quarterback who has established himself as their franchise QB, and now they've started to build around him. So they spent more money than any other team in free agency, and they made a point to surround him with talent up on the line and at the skill positions, most notably with Travion Henderson, the Ohio State running back, who is a talent in his own right. That team's going to be a much tougher out this year than they were in recent seasons, not to mention the fact that they're playing a 4th-place schedule. Their schedule is easy peasy this year.
The Patriots also drafted their left tackle early in the draft with their first pick, 4th overall, Will Campbell out of LSU. So Drake May has his guy to protect him and a lot better offensive line heading into this 2025 season. Now we move to Week 6 with another primetime game for Buffalo with the team the Bills don't see too often, the Atlanta Falcons. They'll travel to Atlanta to take on the Falcons for Monday Night Football. These 2 have played each other only 13 times, with the last meeting happening during the 2021 season. It resulted in a win for Buffalo.
Yeah, and they haven't been down to Atlanta since McDermott's first year as head coach back in 2017, and that was a really exciting game. Tre'Davious White with a fumble return of like 50 yards for a touchdown. Micah Hyde had a big interception in that game, and the Bills weren't expected to win, but they did in year 1 under Coach McDermott. I think that was a Week 4 game. We'll get to see the 2 pass rushers that the Falcons drafted in round 1, James Pierce and Jalen Walker. Are they the real deal, or can Buffalo's vaunted offensive line keep them in check?
Yeah, they finished 2nd in the NFC South last year with an 8-9 record. It'll be interesting to see if they can challenge other teams in the NFC South. All right, moving on to Week 9. Not prime time, but a huge game for the Bills. They will see the Chiefs at home, 4:25 matchup. That means the Bills will have a 8-week ramp up, which includes a bye week before seeing the 2024 AFC champs in Kansas City. Now, It's their 6th year in a row that these teams will face each other in the regular season. The Bills have won 4 straight matchups against the Chiefs in the regular season. 2 MVP quarterbacks, again, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes taking center stage. Every NFL fan loves to see a matchup like this. So, Chris, how do you weigh the importance of this game at the halfway point in the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost dropped in the same exact spot it was last year. Last year was November 17th. I think it was week 11. So it comes 2 weeks earlier this year. But right around this time in the season, you kind of know what you are as a football team. And I think that's appealing to the networks. And it's why CBS, decided we're going to protect this game, keep it in the 4 o'clock window as a national game. And I think both teams should be humming by this point in the season. I am happy that the Bills will have 2 of the free agents they signed on defense back from suspension by the time they play the Chiefs.
Point.
So they'll be a little bit deeper on the defensive front. And again, much like the Ravens game, another litmus test for Buffalo's defense. Can they finally get consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes and really impact that Chiefs passing game in a way we have not seen before?
This is a Buffalo Bills defense who added 3 different players on the defensive line in free agency and 3 different players on the defensive line in the draft. It's definitely a revamped defensive line, so it'll be great to see what they can do against an incredibly talented quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. Moving on to week 12, back in the prime time window, Thursday night football, their second Thursday night game on Prime. This one against the Houston Texans. The Bills will get a mini bye week on week 12 because they'll be at Houston for a Thursday night matchup. Now, these two faced each other last season. Houston won thanks to a game-winning 59-yard field goal by Kaimi Fairbairn. Houston finished first in the AFC South last season with a 10-7 record. They were a pretty good team, but C.J. Stroud kind of fell off toward the end of the season. It'll be interesting to see what this quarterback can do in his 3rd year. And when you look at this game, Chris, I'm kind of smelling a revenge game because of how it ended.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the Bills were in a major hole in that game, came back from the deficit. I think it was like 20-3 at one point, came all the way back, and then lose on a last-second field goal, as you mentioned. Stroud had a sophomore slump year last year. Let's not sugarcoat it at all. Their offensive line was a major problem in terms of pass protection and running the football. It surfaced more in the second half of the year than it did in the first half when the Bills played them. But yeah, I think going back there to Houston, they're going to remember pretty vividly how annoyed they were that they dropped that game after working so hard to climb back into it. I'm expecting a much better performance from them against a Houston team that once again loaded up at receiver. They drafted the 2 Iowa State kids, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Hill, I think it is.
Yep.
So those are 2 guys that are part of their passing game now that Diggs has moved on to New England. So I'm curious to see what that passing game looks like after it'll have 2 months to get up and running before they play the Bills.
Week 14. Not a primetime game for Buffalo, but an important one. They're going to face an AFC opponent that hasn't been the easiest for the Bills in the recent past. That's the Bengals. Cincinnati has come out on top in the last 2 meetings, one of which was in the playoffs during the 2022 season. Now, the Bengals paid their top 2 wide receivers this offseason in Triple Crown winner Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who produced 10 touchdowns last year. Chris, what's the toughest part about seeing the Bengals toward the end of the season?
Well, I don't know if it's the time of the year. It's just what they're capable of.
Okay.
They are a team that scores. And if you're going to beat the Bengals, it's not about their defense slowing you down. It's about you just trying to get stops on their offense. I think we saw their problems last year. They had trouble stringing wins together due mainly to how porous their defense was. They tried to make some steps to shore that up, but I don't think they've gone to nearly the lengths that Buffalo did in this offseason to improve their defense. So in my mind, Bills, the better all-around team in this matchup. But if Joe Burrow gets on a heater, he could put 40 on the board pretty quickly. So what the aim of the Bills should be in this one is all you got to do is force the Bengals to punt 3-4 times in this game. Your offense takes care of business. You should win the football game.
The Bengals ranked 6th last year, averaging 27.8 points per game. And let's round out our slate of important games on Buffalo's schedule. It's week 17 against the Eagles at home. 4:25, and I think all Bills fans are hoping for a late Christmas present, beating the Eagles, the Super Bowl champs in the Eagles, just 3 days after Christmas. The Bills will see another ultra-talented opponent in the comfort of their own home. A lot of these big games are at Highmark Stadium. The Eagles were so talented up front last year, but lost a lot of defensive players this offseason. It's going to be a measuring stick game for Buffalo as they get ready for the playoffs. So, Chris, what is the importance of this type of matchup in Week 17?
That they're healthy.
Fingers crossed.
We're hoping the Bills are healthy for this one because, to your point, they are playing one of the deepest rosters in the league. Even with some of their free agent losses this offseason, they just reload, and they are incomparably deep at a lot of positions on both sides of the ball. One of the biggest offensive lines in football.
Yeah.
So the defense is really going to have to bring it in this one. And not for nothing, Buffalo's offensive line, which is a very good offensive line, that's going to be the key matchup in this game. We know the respect that the Philadelphia defensive line has, the size, the strength, the depth. Can Buffalo's offensive line, which I think is top 3 in the league, measure up? That's going to be the major test, I think, in this one. And if Buffalo's offensive line is up to it, Bills could come out with a victory in this one, I think.
The Eagles were top 10 on offense and defense last year, and what they did during free agency and in the draft has the looks of another top 10 team on both sides of the football. Now that we've covered the big primetime games, the important matchups for Buffalo, let's look at the AFC East as a whole, the games that the Bills have against their division. We're used to seeing the NFL stack AFC East games at the end of the season. That's not the case this year. It's actually a little bit front-loaded, and at the end of the season, only one in the last 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, we usually see the league making an aim to put division games at the front, division games at the back. They're hoping that there's some impact on the division title race at the end, and that's why they sandwich them down there. And they also don't want teams throwing away games and sitting starters if they can help it, and sometimes division matchups help prevent that as well. But yeah, back half of the schedule here, the division games are spread out. You have almost a month between each of them here. You know, Dolphins week 10, Patriots week 15, Jets week 18. So they're spread out with a month in between them. It's in stark contrast to what you see on the front half, where they play all 3 division teams in a 4-week span. So they play all 3 within a month, and then they don't play each of them for a month in the second half.
It'll be an interesting to see how this all, comes together as we watch teams in the AFC East figure out who they are, because Buffalo has won the AFC East 5 straight years and look to be the favorites right now because of the newness in the division this season. You've got new coaches in Aaron Glenn with the Jets and Mike Vrabel with the Patriots. Who is one AFC East team that you're looking out for to challenge Buffalo?
Yeah, I mean, I really think the Patriots are going to wind up being the second best team in the division. I think the hill that the Jets have to climb is just way too steep. The quarterback situation, while they have Justin Fields, is far from settled. I think because the Patriots have the head coach who's got a proven track record in this league, playoff berths, etc., and the fact that they have the quarterback, those are 2 things that you could argue the other 2 teams in the division don't have, at least from the standpoint of the Jets don't have a franchise quarterback. And then for the Dolphins, yes, they might have a quote-unquote franchise quarterback, but he never plays 17 games. He's always hurt. He'll miss a chunk of the season, and usually their season goes downhill soon thereafter. So I think the Patriots, with what they've assembled in one offseason, combined with the fact that they have the head coach and the quarterback, they're probably the second-place team in the division when it's all said and done. They may only be 9-8, but I think that might be good enough to be second place.
They made big-time additions to their trenches, and like we hear Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane always say, the game is won up front in the trenches. That is what Mike Vrabel did as soon as he took the job in New England. Now, going along with the games in the AFC East this season, there's going to be something fun to look out for, because the Bills, along with the rest of the AFC East and the NFC West, will be repping rivalry jerseys this season. The inspiration for the uniforms will be based off local community insights. They will be worn during a select home game against division rivals. This date will be released at a later time. It's a partnership with Nike and the NFL that will give athletes and fans an opportunity to connect like never before.
Yeah, it should be cool. I'm looking forward to it. from what we've been told, it's going to be completely different from what anybody expects. It's not like some throwback jersey from yesteryear. This is complete revamp, like creativity took over with a capital C.
I can't wait to see how they put Buffalo into this rivalry uniform. It's going to be an awesome thing that we can look out for at some point this season.
Yeah, game TBD, right?
Yeah, game TBD. All right, now let's take a holistic look at this schedule now that we've broken a bunch of it down. The Bills will get an early bye week this year, Chris. Week 7, but a mini bye later in week 12 following that game against Houston.
Yeah, so week 7's a fair spot. I'd prefer it a bit later, but as you said, they do get a mini bye going from week 12 into week 13 with a Thursday night game followed by a Sunday game. That will help for the bodies to recover down the stretch. Last year they had it in week 12, and I remember a bunch of players were saying, oh my gosh, it was the perfect time for the stretch run to really kind of ramp up for the playoffs. Because if you add the playoff games that the Bills play, week 12 is kind of closer to the middle when you're playing, you know, close to 19, 20 games.
Yeah.
Week 7's a little early, but hopefully that mini bye helps them. And look, week 7, that's the first. You got week 6, week 7, and the two guys come off suspension, and then there's a bye week. It's like they got to wait a whole nother week before they can play. They're going to be chomping at the bit, Larry Ogunjobi and Michael Hoyt.
Similar to last year, Buffalo will be in the primetime window to start the season. We'll just call them the primetime Bills to start this season. 5 primetime games, 4 of those 5 within the first 6 weeks. And then you look at some of those really tough games, maybe not primetime games, but those 4:25 games against the Eagles and the Chiefs, the Ravens, of course, Sunday Night Football to start the season. Those are all spread apart.
Yeah, I like that. If you remember, there was a little bit of a gauntlet stretch last year and even the year before. Back in 2023, they had the Eagles, a bye week, and then the Chiefs. And then last year, they had the Chiefs and the Niners, and then they had the Rams and the Lions. That looked like a gauntlet when we first looked at the schedule last year. That is not the case this year. You've got the Ravens at the front end, you've got the Chiefs in the middle, and you've got the Eagles at the end. I think spreading those out, because all 3 of those games are going to be supremely physical games, and you're just a little bit more sore coming out of those. Takes a little bit longer to recover because you know it's going to be rock'em sock'em football. So the fact that you can spread those out against the 3, what we believe to be the 3 toughest games on the schedule, I think is beneficial for Buffalo.
Yeah, I love that they'll have some time to heal up those bodies, getting ready for that next huge important game on that schedule. Now, the Bills don't have any super tough stretches now that we've addressed the fact that these big games are spread out really nicely for Buffalo. And as it relates to being on the road, no crazy stretches either. 2 games is the longest stretch you'll see Buffalo be on the road. They have a 3-game stretch at home. And Buffalo's not traveling too far this season, Chris.
Right, it helps, right? So you look at the back half of the schedule there, and they've got a pair of back-to-back roadies in November and in mid-December. If you add it all together, it is 4 road games in 5 weeks. That's something to keep an eye on, but the trips, to your point, are short. Houston's a long trip at the front end, but Steelers, that's a hop, skip, and a jump. Patriots is a short flight. Browns is a short trip. So, yeah, it's 4 out of 5 on the road, but I think the fact that you've got destinations that are close in proximity certainly helps for player recovery heading into the next week.
And we know how much our head coach Sean McDermott loves sticking to a schedule. Some of those games there in November and December, 1 o'clock games, which I think our players love to see later on in the schedule. We know the everybody eats mantra and how it applied to Buffalo on the field last season, spreading the ball out, letting everybody have a game. How does it apply to the schedule this year?
Well, just about every network and streaming service is getting a taste of the Bills. I mean, you look at this schedule and all of the primetime games at the front end, to your point, CBS, Fox, ESPN, Amazon Prime, NBC, they all get a taste of the Bills before we even get to mid-season. Only Netflix and YouTube, which are really only doing specialty games, you know, Black Friday, Christmas Day, those are the only 2 networks or streaming services that do not have a Bills game. Everyone else does, and I think it's an indication that the Bills are must-see TV, and the networks want a piece of that. So much like Joe Brady says everybody eats, the networks and streaming services are doing the same when it comes to the Buffalo Bills.
You said the Bills are must-see TV. Well, let's talk to the guy who makes the schedule. It's NFL VP of Broadcast Planning, Mike North. He's going to help us make sense of all of this. Mike, the Bills start off the season on a huge stage, a season opener against the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. Why did you decide that these two had to match up against each other in the opening week of the season?
Yeah, it's funny. That matchup lived in probably about 30 different homes this year. You get the matchup of the two most recent MVPs and obviously a match that we think is going to have pretty significant playoff implications in the AFC. You could have saved it all the way for December. We looked at schedules where that game was in week 17. We obviously also saw a schedule with that game in week 1. Could have been Sunday night, could have been Monday night, could have been a CBS 425 doubleheader game. It's just one of those, I likened it to a blank Scrabble tile. Like, you could play it anywhere and it works. So love having the flexibility for a game like that, and it enables you to search through different branches of the solution tree where no matter where that game lands, you know it's going to be good. Once it landed on Sunday night of week 1 and we sort of saw the rest of the Sunday night schedule, the rest of the Bills schedule, the rest of the Monday night schedule, the doubleheader schedule, it felt like a really good kind of week 1 continuation of what's going to be a phenomenal set of storylines. You think about Dallas, Philly right out of the gate for kickoff, Kansas City against the Chargers down in Brazil, big doubleheader game on CBS, Detroit, Green Bay, bring it back with a Monday night game, Chicago Mini. It just felt like that Sunday nighter Balt Buff fell in there, and it felt like it belonged.
And that home game for the Bills in week 1, Mike, is part of a clump of home games at the front end here. 4 in the first 5 games at home for the Bills. That's a little bit of an anomaly. We don't see that very often. I had to go back and look. The last time the Bills had that was 1993.
Whoa.
Which is also the last time they went to the Super Bowl.
Once every 30 years, right?
Yeah. But
look, it's
what happens
where,
there? What happens there when you have those
what
anomalies?
happens there, quite honestly, is there's a little bit of randomness to it, obviously. There's also a strategic approach to each of the network partners' schedules. And so, obviously, a Sunday night early for the Bills on NBC, that feels great to NBC. A Thursday night early for Amazon. You guys were the opener for Amazon last year. That week 2 game against Miami last year was averaging something like 17 million viewers before Tua got hurt. So an opportunity to kind of run that back early in the season for Amazon is a win for them. The game on ESPN, the Monday Nighter, is part of the side-by-side. You know every team wants to get that taste of Buffalo nice and early. Every network likes to get that taste of Buffalo nice and early. And then still, hopefully, you can hang on to a couple of good games down the stretch that are going to be in national windows. The weather starts to turn, playoff implications increase. You find yourself kind of well represented on the national television schedule early in the year, but also late in the year with those 2 Fox doubleheaders down there against Cincy and Philly. So kind of stringing out the Bills national television games all throughout the year, a few early, a couple sprinkled on the middle, and still hold on to a couple for the end.
The Bills produced some picturesque games at the end of the season. In December, the snow is falling. The snowballs are also falling in the sky, as fans like to throw them to celebrate touchdowns. And when you look at those games, you kind of think about, wow, Christmas would be perfect in Buffalo. But this season, no Christmas games for the Bills, no holiday games for Buffalo. They miss out again for a 3rd straight season. Why?
Miss out? Are they looking for it? Are you guys looking for it?
I think the fans are looking for it more than anyone.
The fans, I think.
Yeah, look, the truth of the matter is we absolutely saw schedules with the Bills hosting on Christmas. There's no 2 ways around that. The Cincinnati-Buffalo game was almost our Christmas Day game. Philly-Buffalo ended up in week 17, just didn't end up on Christmas. That would have been fun. The challenge really is the fact that Christmas is a short week when you're playing on that Thursday, and every team can play a maximum of 2 short week games. So if we were going to use Buffalo on Christmas, unless we were going to use them on Amazon, then one of their short weeks was going to be probably on Netflix on Christmas. The other short week was going to be on Amazon, and that would have been Amazon's only shot at the Bills. And what Amazon is really strategic about, and what we try to maybe not always accommodate because you can't do everything for everybody, but one of the things that we know they're sensitive about are the teams that they get to have on their schedule twice. And it's rare that you're going to be able for Amazon to get to a Dallas twice, a Kansas City twice. So what's next? I would argue probably right after Dallas and Kansas City, you're probably talking about Philadelphia and Buffalo right now. And so the fact that Amazon gets 2 Philadelphias and 2 Buffaloes really strengthens their schedule. And it just so happened then that we use both of those teams multiple short weeks for windows other than Christmas. So did we consider Philadelphia and Buffalo and Cincinnati and everybody else for Christmas? We absolutely did. We landed on 3 division games for Christmas, and we got the 2 Buffalo short week games in earlier in the season, and to their benefit, both on Amazon.
Yeah. You touched on it already a little bit, Mike, but the 425 national window games, Bills part of 4 of those, and I imagine they would be part of this already, but when they pull a number with the Chiefs last year in Week 11 of 31.2 million viewers, which was the most watched regular season game excluding holiday games since 2007, I imagine that perks up the ears and eyeballs of the networks, and they say, I'm protecting these games. How much was that a part of the equation here with these 425s?
Yeah, people always talk about, how many primetime games did we get? Like, the truth is that 4:25 Eastern time window, it's still our most watched window. We do numbers on Sunday afternoon on CBS and Fox that it's hard to get to in primetime when you start approaching, 11 o'clock Eastern time. And fans need to go to sleep. They got to go to work the next day. So that 4:25 Sunday afternoon window is still our high water mark. And while we are indeed busy making sure that the primetime partners all have really good games, at 9:30 in the morning on Sunday for our international partners, good game for our streaming partners, we can't forget, right? We can't lose sight of the fact that our biggest window, our most viewership still comes from Sunday afternoon at 4:30. So you got to make sure that every weekend it feels like there's a big game sitting there on a Sunday afternoon at 4:30, and having the Bills in 4 of them is a testament to the strength of the brand, the star power of the quarterback. I don't believe, as I sit here today, I'll have to check to remind myself, but I don't think anybody's got more 425 games than the Bills.
There will be a couple huge games for Buffalo to close out the season at home, and that's because it's the farewell season at Highmark Stadium. They opened their doors in 1973, and this is going to mark the final season before the Bills move over to the new Highmark Stadium right across the street. Why was it so important to have a couple games at the end of the season at home?
Yeah, I'm not sure we set out necessarily at the very beginning to ensure that there was multiple home games in the final weeks of the season, but we were certainly cognizant when we sat down and started this process. Okay, what are some of the targets that we want to be sure to hit? What are some of the games that are must-see TV, gotta land in national windows? And what are some of the storylines that, we'd like to make sure get the attention that they deserve? And obviously one of them was the closing of the stadium. There's been times when we've really kind of leaned into the last game in some of our buildings. There's also been times where, quite frankly, I think maybe we kind of whiffed on it. So given this, unique set of circumstances with the Bills and their building, a Week 18 home game, obviously if you're going to have one, it's going to be against a division opponent. Could have made a great case for any of them, New England, Miami, or the Jets. But a Jets-Bills game just kind of feels like the right way to give that building a proper send-off. So hopefully that game has significant playoff implications, and if it does, don't be shocked at all if we find it moving to a national window. That last game in Week 18 at the building could be played Saturday 4:30 or 8 o'clock, could be Sunday 1, Sunday 4:25, or with any luck it's Jets Bills for the AFC East, and we move it to Sunday night at 8:30 and get some of that snow you were talking about.
Yeah, you did that a couple of years ago with Bills Dolphins for the division title down in Miami.
Good one.
Got flexed to Sunday Night Football. And you may not have even been aware of this, but the last game in the first season in this stadium in the regular season was Bills Jets.
How about that? See that? Who says
the perfect bow on it. You guys know what you're doing, Mike. Thanks so
symmetry.
much for the time. We're so excited for this farewell season in Highmark Stadium. Some incredible home games will be played at Highmark. We can't wait for it. Thanks, Mike.
Absolute pleasure. Take care.
That was NFL VP of Broadcast Planning, Mike North. Now, Chris, if you look at the schedule, there's a couple hidden sneaky tough games, I want to call them, in Buffalo's schedule. And I want you to help me identify a couple of those. What's one that you think Buffalo shouldn't overlook?
Yeah, the one that kind of sticks out to me is the Bucs game on November 16th at home. It's a playoff team from last year. It's a team that I thought did well at the top end of the draft. They refortify their receiving core with Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Get a couple of defensive backs after that, including one of my favorite players in the draft, the Kansas State corner Jacob Parrish, along with Benjamin Harrison from Notre Dame in round 2. So I like what they did in the draft. I kind of like what they did in the offseason. And as I said, they were a playoff team last year, played the Bills tough here a couple of years ago in a tight game that was a one-score game. So I don't think you want to overlook this team. A lot of veteran talent on that team, some young, exciting talent added this offseason. I think they're going to play the Bills tough. And a lot of times we don't often know as much about the NFC teams that we don't see as often. This is a good football team coming in here in November.
Let's not forget they averaged the 4th most points last season at 29.5, and you'll see a lot of familiar faces on this team again this season. And like you said, you liked what they did in the offseason. I think adding a wide receiver to that team in the first round, who a lot of people loved, it'll be fun to see what he can do on that roster in his rookie season. If I'm looking at a sneaky tough game for Buffalo, for me, it's got to be the Week 15 game, December 14th at New England. We talked about the Patriots being that sneaky team in the AFC East who could kind of challenge Buffalo. And at that point in the season, the Patriots should know who they are. You've got a talented head coach in Mike Vrabel. You've got a talented quarterback in Drake May, who proved that he has the it factor in his rookie season, completing 67% of his passes, and they drafted well. They got their left tackle in Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick, added some talented defensive linemen and offensive linemen through free agency, and Stephon Diggs and Mac Hollins, 2 wide receivers who have played in Buffalo, are a part of that Patriots roster. They've got good players. They just need to figure out how to put it together. And if they do, Week 15, you could be looking at an entirely different Patriots team than the one we face early on.
Not to mention it's a 4th place schedule. And if you look at their home schedule, their toughest game at home, the Bills, by far.
Yeah.
No one is even close. They've got 3rd and 4th place teams dotted up and down their schedule at Gillette Stadium, so they should have a pretty formidable record that they've put together by the time they face Buffalo.
The 2025 season marks the farewell season at Highmark Stadium for the Buffalo Bills. They're going to have an awesome logo that players will wear in select games throughout the season. That logo will also be on a bunch of merch that everyone can purchase. It's going to be a season to remember because there's several top-tier games at home in Highmark Stadium. The Bills have been in this stadium since 1973 and will have a chance to close it out in the perfect way possible before moving over to the new Highmark Stadium in 2026.
Yeah, it should be a great home schedule, and hopefully it extends beyond the regular season in Week 18 with some home playoff games as well.
And like we know right now, our quarterback Josh Allen, MVP quarterback Josh Allen, is must-see TV. I mean, he has a franchise record for most touchdowns, 262, the first player ever to have 5 straight seasons of at least 40 total touchdowns. This is somebody that everybody wants to watch, whether it's in person or on TV.
No question about it, and I would expect it to continue. Wouldn't even be surprised if a game or two got flexed late in the year.
You can join the priority list for Bills season tickets in the new Highmark Stadium. Visit BillsStadiumExperience.com. We want to thank you for tuning in to our schedule release instant reaction show. Single game tickets are now on sale, available for purchase at BuffaloBills.com. For Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. We'll see you guys at training camp.